Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and Alabama got it done this past Saturday afternoon. It was a wild trip to Arkansas. The Crimson Tide was up, then down, not in the score, but in terms of the game momentum, and then up again. We'll get into the injury to Bryce Young and his status for Texas A&M in a moment. Of course, he's dealing with that shoulder. But first, Alabama does defeat Arkansas 49-26. They wound up winning it comfortably. Arkansas, after Alabama jumped out 28-0, scored 23 unanswered points to end the second quarter and the third quarter and got this thing down to 28-23. This is the play of the game right here. It's 28-23. Alabama's backed up on 3rd and 15. And if they have to punt the ball there, who knows what would happen. But Jalen Milroe, who had come in for, of course, Bryce Young, 77 yards. I thought he might have scored. They said he went out on the 2. That set up a 2-yard touchdown by Jace McClellan. And from there, Jahmyr Gibbs just absolutely, well, he did what we saw Jahmyr Gibbs do for 2 years at Georgia Tech. I mean, he's just a sensational player. He had 2 touchdown runs, over 70 yards to seal the deal, and he's the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. Alabama's offense rolled up 555 yards in the game. 311 of that was on the ground, and the Crimson Tide gets the victory, as I said, 49-26. All right, Rodney, let me bring you in here for your analysis. Let's start with the positives, and obviously, when Bryce went down, the game was 14-0. So I think the first big positive was that Jalen Milroe came in and quickly increased that lead to 28-0. And then after Arkansas came back, he made the play of the game. And I thought, if nothing else, just from a poise standpoint, he'd really never been in this situation. I thought he showed out well.
You know, I think sometimes fans and all of us forget how difficult of a situation that can be. I mean, here's a guy that has limited experience, certainly doesn't have any experience in that kind of environment in a highly contested game against a really good opponent. Everybody's against you. I thought, you know, of course he's going to have some rough spots, but he didn't panic. And I think that really contributed, his composure contributed to the play he made in the fourth quarter. And Gary, you talked about that was the play of the game. I think at the end of the season, we might look back and say that might be one of the 1, 2, or 3 biggest plays of the whole season.
Another big positive for the entire team. I mean, you're in control of the football game. I mean, it's 28-0 with under 3 minutes to go in the second quarter. Give Arkansas credit. After having 65 yards of offense for the entire half, they went 75 to get on the board. But that third quarter, and we'll get into the bad side of what happened to allow Arkansas to get back in the game. But once they got back in the game, the entire team, obviously the big run by Milroe kind of started. But from that point on, it was like, okay, we've seized control again. We're going to put them away.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, the offensive line, that's a real key.
Yeah, played great.
I think right now, when I look at this offensive line, I think that's maybe one of the, if not the most encouraging part of this team in terms of the development. It's really huge because that's where it all starts. Alabama really struggled on the offensive line last year. It's amazing they got as far as they did given the offensive line play. The way they've progressed, this team, this offense, if that offensive line continues to block like that, both as run and pass pro, Gary, I mean, they're going to be unstoppable, again, if they continue to progress.
All right, there were some drops, but also those 2 young freshman wide receivers, Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond, they're playmakers. And then you get JoJo Earle back. He didn't play a ton of snaps, but he had a huge touchdown catch from Milroe in the second quarter. Listen, again, you got to tighten up. When ball hits your hands at this level, you got to catch it. But this wide receiving core, this is 5 games in. Game 9, Game 10, Game 11, Game 12, they have a chance, I think, to be really dynamic.
Yeah, you saw 2 big plays there by number 80, Kobe Prentice. There you go with Isaiah Bond. If he keeps his balance here, he kind of loses himself, falls down, but he made a big play there, certainly. And those young players, with the speed that they bring, they can add a lot of dynamic playmaking ability. You mentioned JoJo Earle, the 1 catch he had, went for a touchdown. He's back healthy. We're going to probably see some other guys eventually, maybe Tyler Harrell. So I think this wide receiver core certainly, you talked about the consistency with a couple of them. Ja'Cory Brooks, Treshaun Holden had a big drop, I think, across the middle. But you're right. I think if they progress and continue to progress and mature the young players, this has a chance to be a really good receiving core.
All right, when you look at the negative, obviously it starts with the injury to Bryce Young. He's scrambling out, trying to get rid of the football. Former Alabama linebacker Drew Sanders tackles him. He lands on the shoulder. It's being called a sprain by Nick Saban, but we don't know what his status is going to be for this Saturday. We don't think it's going to be long-term. He might play Saturday. He might not. But clearly, when you got the Heisman Trophy winner at the quarterback position, that's a blow when he goes down.
Oh, big blow. He's the leader of your team. I mean, he's the guy that this whole thing's built around, the franchise player, if you will. But with that said, I mean, how many programs, Gary, can lose a guy of this magnitude and this importance, and you bring in a guy with little experience, but just his athleticism, Jalen Milroe, and you score 35 points with your backup quarterback on the road. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the fact that Milroe had to come in, like you said, on the road. If it's at home, it's going to be easier. I'm telling you. Certainly, Bryce will be welcome when he gets back, but you feel good if Jalen Milroe has to start on Saturday night against the Aggies. All right, let's get to some of the bad. One of the places the Tide struggled, which they've been great in special teams this year, but Will Riker missed a field goal in the first half, even though it was a 52-yarder. He missed it. And then in the third quarter, this is inexcusable here. Alabama gets caught flat-footed. I'm screaming at the TV even before the guy kicks it, be ready for the onside kick. Alabama didn't appear that it was. And then a horrible, what happened on that snap with the punt, deep, whether it was, Henry T's fault for not, or Burnham's fault, or Nealon Hibbett, the snapper's fault. That's a disaster right there.
It really was. Look, you wondered at this point, are they going to recover? Because everything was going downhill. I mean, it was an avalanche. There's no other way to put it. But you mentioned the maturity of this team. Somehow they, regrouped. But not only that, this play here, but Gary, some really undisciplined play. You talked about Henry T.
Late in the game.
Late in the game, yeah, when he makes and that's out of character for him. I know he's kind of done that a couple of times this year. He got flagged this time. It's really kind of out of character. Marco Hellum's got away with a push late there. You had some, Dallas Turner had a face mask penalty. I think Jalen Moody had a late personal foul. But, all of those things, they've got to be cleaned up because when you're in a tight game with an opponent, a really quality opponent, that can cost you.
Before I get to coach talk, real quick thought on the defense. And granted, all four quarters count. I get that. It's like when some guy goes 88 for a run and they say, well, outside of that play, they didn't rush but for 30 yards. It all counts. But outside of the end of the second half and that third quarter, when in fairness to the defense, the onside kick was an extra position. Then you get a first and goal at the 2. Outside of that third quarter, I thought the defense played very well.
Yeah, I think probably defensively they gave up maybe 13 points, if you want to look at it that way, because they were put in some bad situations, 16 at the most maybe. Thought they had some, they had some letdowns, but overall, I think the defense is playing really, really well.
All right, Rod, time now for Coach Talk. Alabama head coach Nick Saban has a unique relationship as far as the media is concerned. I think that's a fair way to put it. And, he has fun at times. At times he's a little colorful. A lot of times when people call it a rant, it's really not a rant. But yesterday when he was asked about the game plan for Saturday at A&M with Jalen Milroe, he had a very interesting comeback.
Again, I don't talk to Jimbo on a regular basis, but I'll call him and tell him right after the conference if you want me to. I mean, you guys think I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with our offense and our team?
No, but I say this, reporters still have to ask, particularly when you don't get to practice. Real quick note, Rodney, on the quarterbacks. At practice today, it was one of the video days. Alabama sent out video. A lot of balls, the receivers catching balls. No video of the quarterbacks throwing the balls.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yep.
We don't know yet as far as quarterback is concerned on Saturday.
Right, and Jimbo Fisher's actually playing pretty coy himself.
Yeah.
His starter was injured.
Max Johnson or Haynes King for them.
Haynes King may start. Who knows?
So, but for Alabama, if Bryce is able to play, we won't know until Saturday. And listen, no doubt, A&M gets to prepare for Jalen Milroe. Arkansas didn't. But at the same time, Bryce Young still could play too. So both of these teams, like you said, with quarterback questions, so I guess both teams are kind of in the same boat.
I kind of like Alabama's a lot better.
Oh, I mean, I like about it from talent standpoint. I'm just saying, though, as far as knowing who's going to go.
I understand.
But obviously, Alabama with a big advantage there. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. We'll hear both Jimbo's take on backup quarterback, or hear his take on backup quarterback Jalen Milroe. Also, the latest on Tua Tagovailoa. We know that was scary what happened to him against the Bengals. And we'll be getting to your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets as always. The phone number right there, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at the address on your screen, or even tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. We're back here on Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Well, One of your favorite topics, the Aggies. Texas A&M week is here. Rodney, let's just be honest. Back in the spring and the summer with all the back and forth going on, we envisioned this being 2 top 5 type teams. A&M was 6 in the preseason poll, unbeaten, college game day, all the pomp and circumstance. It's not the case. It's once again very much like last year, other than the game was in Tuscaloosa. That A&M team was 3-2. They were coming off 2 losses in a row in that game. So obviously they're holding out hope that lightning will strike twice. But when you look at this A&M team, let's be honest, Rodney, they're not a great team right now, especially on offense. They lost to Mississippi State on Saturday in Starkville 42-24. They've already lost at home to Appalachian State. Very fortunate to win against Arkansas. Went down to the wire against Miami. It is what it is. Offensively, I still think their defense is pretty good. I mean, they can make some plays in the kicking game. Offensively, they're not very good.
Yeah, I watched them in their opener against Sam Houston. They struggled. They didn't have a quarterback that played consistently. Haynes King, he was replaced by Max Johnson. There you saw Max throw that ball right there. Max got hurt in this game, and so maybe Haynes King starts. Gary, some people out in Texas saying, will A&M unleash their 5-star freshman Connor Weigman? I don't know. But number 13 there, Haynes King, talk about him for just a second, Gary. He's a guy that can run the ball. He is capable of throwing it down the field occasionally. He's had some, 60-plus yard touchdown passes in a couple of the earlier games. So you got to be careful. You can't take him lightly. He is a guy that has had some success. Weigman was a really highly touted kid coming out of high school last year. I don't know if they plan to use him or not, but he is a guy that certainly, when you look to the future, is going to be really good. All
right, back to the quarterback situation for Alabama. Clearly, the A&M defensive staff knows all about Bryce Young, but they're also having to prepare for Jalen Milroe. Here's what Jimbo Fisher had to say as far as a scouting report on Milroe, who he recruited very heavily coming out of high school.
There's an outstanding player, athletic, strong, throw it a mile. I mean, hit what he throws at, very accurate that way, and then tremendous athlete.
Yeah, Rodney, he is. And again, I know you follow it closer than I do, but A&M really pursued Jalen Milroe with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. He wound up here at Alabama, but you heard the short scouting report, but that's true. Big, strong athlete, has proven already in the little bit of time that we've seen they can throw the ball fairly accurately. If you're A&M, I guess the bottom line is you just got to try to play your best game regardless of who Alabama puts out there at quarterback.
Yeah, and I think you talk about Milroe. Obviously he was committed to Texas initially, and then when Drake May, who was committed here, having a great year at North Carolina, decommitted, that's when Milroe was pursued in terms of flipping his commitment to Alabama. But you're right. I mean, big, strong, physical guy. He's really developing some in the passing game. He didn't play much as a passer in high school, Gary. He didn't play in a program that really kind of utilized that style of offense. So he's really developing that. And he's starting to get better and better and better. And I think the experience this week, when they build that game plan around him, they'll give him throws that he feels comfortable with.
This narrative that, A&M could do it again because they did it last year, I'm not really buying it. I think it's 2 totally different scenarios. Having said that, you do expect when you're Alabama, you and I discuss this often, that you're going to get everybody's best effort, regardless of what's happened prior or what happens later in the season. When they play here, I do think A&M will be enthused and ready to play the game. I just don't think they're good enough.
Well, look, defensively, you hit on that. You said they're really talented defensively, and they are. They've recruited lights out on that side of the ball. They've got some good players. The defense has kept them in some games. Here's what, Gary, when I watch Texas A&M, something's missing. Chemistry-wise, between the ears, mindset, whatever it is, something's really missing because they're a better football team. They've got more talent. I know they've struggled at quarterback, but they've got more talent than what they've shown.
They have. All right, let's move on to the NFL. Former Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins will miss the game this weekend against the Jets. Of course, Tua has been through a lot. This is the play against the Bengals when you see him thrown to the turf, and he is concussed. He also took a shot to the head on the ground in the game against Buffalo 4 days earlier than this. A lot of people thought he shouldn't have played. He passed concussion protocol. Rodney, he's definitely out for this next game against the Jets, and I think now with all the attention that's being paid to this situation, the Dolphins aren't going to bring him back until he's ready to go. We just hope that's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, man, what a shot that was, Gary. That's the first time I've seen it from that angle.
Yeah.
It's a really graphic angle.
Yeah, it's tough, but we are all keeping Tua in our thoughts. All right, coming up on TITV, Alabama soccer stays hot, and we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on your screen, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and call in, Tider Insider Nation. We'll be back after this. Last week over in Athens, the Alabama soccer team kept on rolling. 2-1 win over Georgia. They were 5th in the country then. They're up to number 4 now. They're 11-1 overall, 4-0 in the SEC. They're going to host Ole Miss on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. The first 100 fans of the game will receive a free Alabama scarf. Get out and see this team. They're really good. All right, welcome back into the program, and let's get to the phone lines. And first up is Robert in Northport. Hey, Robert, how are you? Robert, you with us?
It's Roger. You got Roger?
Is it Roger? Okay, I'm sorry, Roger.
Yeah, Roger.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I was just wondering, since the game's on CBS, if we was going to have to listen to Gary Danielson again this weekend, and since he had Bryce Young almost in the grave when he got hurt Saturday. So, do you know who the announcer is? Or
all right, well, let me just say this, Roger. It's a split telecast on Saturday. They'll have the Auburn-Georgia game that afternoon. I'm going to assume that it's going to be Danielson and Nessler because they did the primetime game last year at College Station, and even though this game's lost some luster, Georgia is a bigger favorite over Auburn in Athens than Alabama is over Texas A&M. So my guess it'll be them. I don't know who the other announced team is, to be quite honest with you, for CBS. So if Nessler and Danielson do the Georgia-Auburn game, I don't know who you'll get. I agree with you on all the speculation that Danielson had about Bryce's shoulder. I know you played quarterback in the NFL. I know you played at Purdue. Still, every injury is different. I didn't really appreciate him coming out and saying, well, I know what happened because it happened to me.
Yeah, rotator cuff's what he said.
Yeah, that's a little too much for me. All right, let's get to what do we got coming up here. All right, let's get to Doug. Hey, Doug, in Alexandria. Hey, Doug, how are you over there in Valley Cub land, man?
Pretty good. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Good. Y'all doing a great job. Hey,
Thank
I
you.
just want to say that I think Jimbo's got a big problem because now he's got to prepare for 2 completely different style quarterbacks on Saturday. That's one thing. Y'all kind of touched on already, but anyway, I think we can still win very good with Jalen. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah, Doug, great comments. I agree with you. And, again, the Alexandria Valley Cubs, that's a high school hotbed for football, basketball, all the sports over there in Northeast Alabama. Yeah, I do too. I think that I think Alabama's better, regardless who plays quarterback. Clearly, I mean, Alabama's best quarterback is Bryce Young. But I liked what I saw from Jalen Milroe, and as we touched on at the top, Rod, if he's got to go, he's going to have a week to prepare, and I think Alabama will be just fine.
Yeah, and I thought they ran the ball extremely well. We talked about the offensive line. I agree with you, Doug. I mean, we might see more running than maybe we would see with Bryce, but I think they could certainly kind of exploit that Texas A&M run defense a little bit. Arkansas had a lot of success against A&M running the ball.
Sure did. All right, thanks for the phone calls. We got more phone calls and emails coming up right after this on TITV. That number again, 205-348-9882. We'll be right back. All right, let's get back to the program, and it's time for our email of the day, which actually is our tweet of the day today. Our question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. And it is from Twitter. How will Bill O'Brien and Nick Saban open the playbook and allow Jalen Milroe to take advantage of his strengths? That's from Goal Line Stan there on Twitter. That's exactly what they're going to do. Rodney, Jalen Milroe's got a different skill set than Bryce Young. We know that, but he can throw the ball well enough. So the RPO game is in play. You know, you come up too far, you commit, he'll throw it over your head, or if you back off, he'll run it. Also, just the read option in terms of whether you hand it off to Gibbs or McClellan or he keeps it himself. I think they'll have a really good package for this guy, and I think he's going to give A&M some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Saban was asked about them. I think that was on our earlier comments that he had about having a package for Milroe.
So they already had one.
They've been working on that package for a long time.
Yeah, so all I got to do now is unleash it. Let's get back to the phone line. CB in Tuscaloosa. Hey, CB, what's up, Adna?
Hey, man, how y'all doing tonight? I tell you, I think Texas A&M going backwards. But anyway, I'm kind of concerned about these penalties, unnecessary penalties in a close game. It could do you in. And one more thing, just looking down the line there, you think Tennessee might be the toughest test 'Cause we got a lot of tough ones. Thank you.
All right, CB. Well, as far as the penalties, especially the dead ball penalties, you're right. Got to clean that up. That'll kill you. That's just, you can't give teams extra possessions. As far as Tennessee's concerned, Rodney, yeah, I think on offense they may be as talented as any team Alabama's going to play on their schedule. I still don't know about their defense, but yeah, you know, you get through A&M, that's going to be a big game next week in Knoxville. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and if Tennessee wins this week, if they beat LSU, it's going to be wild in Knoxville. But their offense is really explosive, obviously. They've got some receivers that can make plays. They'll challenge Alabama's defense. But remember, I thought Alabama's defense played pretty well. Gave up a few big plays last year against that offense. But for the most part, I think they went 6 straight 3-and-outs at one time. Alabama defended them pretty well.
All right, Reginald in Birmingham, we got about 45 seconds. What's up, man?
Yeah, boy, I was going to ask you about the Tennessee game. What do you think about playing teams as tough as A&M before you play the Tennessee game? I mean, for several years they played Chattanooga before they met Tennessee. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Reg, it's the SEC. The schedule is the schedule. You play it the way it falls. I don't have a problem with it. It's a home game, and then you go on the road. That's the way it is in this league.
It's a tough streak. I mean, you play Arkansas, you play Texas A&M, you play Tennessee, you play Mississippi State that's playing really well. You got LSU coming up, you got Ole Miss. I mean, it's what it is.
Life in the SEC West. Hey, look at that shot right there from our tower cam. Man, is that gorgeous? Tuscaloosa, Alabama, man, you can't beat it. We'll be back with our predictions right after this. Alabama, Texas A&M score prediction time. Rodney, as always, we start with you.
Oh, how do you predict a game? You don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. I told Gary earlier today we should make 2 predictions, one with Bryce, one without. So I'll make mine with Milroe, 37-13.
Yeah, I like Alabama regardless of who plays quarterback. I think this Texas A&M offense is just not good enough to keep up. I like Alabama. Pretty much a similar type score, 38-10 is what I've got it. I think the Tide rolls and gets a little payback for that debacle last year out there at Kyle Field. All right, that's going to do it for the program. If you want to see a replay, you can catch it tonight at 10:30. Or you can find it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We'll leave you with some video tonight from Alabama's full pads football practice. There's Jahmyr Gibbs. Hey, he can run, but you also got to block when you play for the Crimson Tide. See you again next week, everybody.